But I want to know how many people that are, as our friend Will would say, guilters, understand that Brian Koberger's likelihood ratio from, while not the state's expert, which, come on, let's all be honest with ourselves. I think most corruption in court cases that you could prove and you could look back at with track records comes from the state side.
Yeah. Well, remember, Bertie, they're in a forensic war right now, right?
Yep.
And what we are seeing, most people are paying attention to this case because of this atrocity. But now people are realizing what our court system does. They're all on the same side. They know that he did not do this, right? I mean, I think we're all aware of that by now, right?
Yep.
Because of the forensics, because of the blotched investigation, because of the witness statements, because of the affidavits, we are now seeing this played out as how the state and how the defense is going to get him out of this mess with avoiding a huge potential lawsuit.
Do you think, like, to that point of why it's getting people's attention, right? It's a huge tragedy. And then this, when you hear, if you haven't been following it, and the only reason you know about the case, Phoenix, is because it's like a huge tragedy. It's been out all on Dateline, Amazon, 2 books, right? And then you hear alt perps were shut down by the court. You're thinking, well, the defense just tried a Hail Mary and it failed. It failed. It fell right on its face. Now it has to be Brian Koberger. But I think the hidden play is that Ann Tiller understood the Idaho Rule 404B, which is the court's position that it pretty much guaranteed this was going to be denied unless there was overwhelming evidence. Ann knew that it didn't need to be granted. What Ann just did is she locked the state into their story. It's now on paper. The state is locked into this story.
Correct. But not only the state is locked into this story, she knew it would play out this way because they have their own DNA expert, Dr. Ben, who, if anyone's been following the case, all the summary and all the court documents up till now, this was done almost a year and a half ago. And this expert is going to testify everything she just laid out, that it could not be Koberger. But yet no one is held accountable. Yes. Everyone walks away.
Because the prosecution not only is like the whole story and the narrative locked in, the prosecution now in the trial during cross-examination, unless they want to perjure themselves, is stuck saying, well, we didn't believe it was necessary. And they just assumed Brian was guilty. They stopped investigating. That's not law enforcement. That's literally a confirmation bias, and it's going to be very obvious in cross-exam.
And this is the argument between the prosecution and defense. Koberger will never take the stand. However, Hippler, the media is saying, oh, it was rejected. It was rejected. There is a tiny bit of information that everyone has looked over in these documents.
Yes.
And dude, it was plain and simple. Anne can question the X, Y, and Z on the stand about alternative perps.
Yes.
Even though she can't bring in any evidence, that doesn't mean you can still not ask the questions. And I went off on a rant the other day. I did my own YouTube. It was my very first one.
Nice.
And I went over the documents and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Everyone could be asked these questions, and then their expert will come in and say, were there other DNA that were not tested? Yeah, there are 3 unknown identified male DNA that didn't meet the alternative perp theory.
Yes.
But there's 3 other people that Anne needs to go out there and find out and name.
It's a joke. It's a joke. And you want to know, it's kind of what might be the most what's the word I'm looking for? Like when kind of justice is served with like a backhand slap, like maybe like karmic.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Or there's karma, but there's like whatever. I'm trying to say this is going to be, if this case goes how we think it is, which again, we are speculating. We don't know. Maybe Brian did do it. I don't believe that he did. Obviously, if he did, goes without being said, he's a piece of shit and he should rot in a jail cell if he did this. But
correct.
If it's not that, you know who's going to end up wearing the giant badge of corruption, it's going to be Judge Hippler.
Well, I mean, within, as you call him, aka King
King
Hitler.
Hippler. Damn it. I should have said that. King Hippler is going to be the literal symbol of corruption in this, though.
I love the cartoon and the
Yeah.
pictures that you put out there. Those were classy.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you think about it, he's the ultimate presiding ruler. And I don't believe, he took this under advisement. I mean, that was a pretty quick order. They did push back the court date, which that is a delay. I don't know why everyone's saying there's no delay. That's 7 more days that Anne has to strategize. That's 7 more days that the defense has to find whatever they need to find before a trial. I've seen some last minute Hail Marys right before trial to where, people charges have dismissed, people walk away with plea deals. I don't think we'll see it here only because of the fact that Anne put up a good strategy. She is on the ball.
Well, and what's interesting, Phoenix, is I think that people need to understand, like, Anne's closing argument. I don't think it's going to be that Brian's innocent. I think it's going to be, if they can do this to Brian with no DNA, with no blood, no match, no motive, no timeline, they can do that to everyone. And I think there's something about Americans if you're on a jury, I don't know how to explain it, but I do think there is, while it might not be the best showcase of American rights and values, and there's something I think inside of everybody that feels a little bit of patriotism, where it's like, if Anne just asked, are you okay with this? Is this how we now do justice in America? You pick a guy and you ignore everything else and you just pretend it's enough. I think that that's going to be her strategy. Not that Brian's innocent. I think it's going to be making people question morally, is this the American justice system?
Absolutely. I think there'll be another catch-22 to this too, because if you were looking at the court documents and reading, plain as day that these other alternative perps were not involved, it didn't say that they were, what percentage of testing, right? And I think that was the other evidence that Anne put into the court record that the judge denied. I think Hippler looked at it and said, there's not enough evidence. And remember, there was a situation where Anne questioned specific evidence. They had the third party evidence investigator come in, and I don't think they got the answer that they wanted to hear on the prosecution side. And that is why he left it plain and simple. Who were these other three DNA? How are they going to find out who these other 3 DNA? They couldn't just go out and check ancestry DNA, because that's what they did to BK.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's almost like Anne saying, you're going to not let any of the alt perps be identified with the exact same methods you identified Bryan Kohberger.
Correct.
And like, I think everybody needs to stop pretending that this is a fair trial. We also need to stop pretending that the alternate perpetrator motion failed. Because I don't think it's about, I think this is literally just about exposing the institutional corruption, the arrogance, a state machine, if you want to say it that, but the illusion of justice has been a crippling issue in America for decades, Phoenix. Decades.
But here's what they were trying to hide, Bertie. And it's plain as day if you follow the trail. If the frats didn't do this, the roommates didn't do this, Bryan Kohberger didn't do this, we're ruling out people who did not do this. Who did this? It was a hit. It was, in my humble opinion, allegedly, because of the pipeline failing and falling apart, this was a fallout from what you see for the last few years that happened with the Midman pipeline, the Big Guy pipeline, the DOJ, the FBI, all the other agencies, multi-agencies that have been taking down this pipeline that ran right through there and in their own backyard.
Well, so I want to finish this little tidbit, Phoenix, but then I want to tell you about a Discord conversation that we had last night. And but essentially, to segue right off of your point, it's, well, We found a car, we found a sheath, we're good. The court's going to deny it. The state celebrates it. Yet they're not realizing that they are admitting under oath this was a single suspect investigation with a working document from day one. Like, that's literally what they just did for a effing Supreme Court firing squad case.
But who did it? Who put this all into play?
Well, that's the $1 million question.
The 3-letter agencies with the I.
I know. And that's
they gave the IGG tip. They narrowed it down to Kohberger. MPD stopped searching any evidence, any investigation. I mean, you see them throw down Maddie's jacket allegedly on video. You see we have only seen what they have want us to see. Yes. But those who are thinking outside of that box, outside of our phones and looking into other things have seen exactly what they were trying to hide from our own national security.
Well, and I just think, like, me personally, I'm sick and tired of the state caring more about a conviction, prosecutors caring more about their careers than they do the truth. I don't know how else to explain it other than just saying it outright, because anytime that a case gets reopened, in addition to, if you watch a documentary on it, for example, Making a Murder is a great example. In addition to looking at who else could have done it by proving the innocence of the person who was wrongfully convicted, do you know who always ends up getting put on blast and just catching strays from everybody? Is the prosecutor. And then you go look into the prosecutor. They are dirty as hell in so many big, high-profile cases.
They chose a prosecutor who was already on the fence of being corrupt.
It's just crazy. It's sickening. It's sad. It's scary. It's a shame. And it's also a shame now that people like ourselves sit here and we can point out X, Y, and Z. We can speculate. We can do whatever. But at the end of the day, you want to know what I think is the most just confusing and surprising thing to me is how we're sitting here with innocent until proven guilty as our, like, golden star that's at the top of our list as to why we do this. And people will drag you through the mud. People will discredit you. And these are our peers. That's crazy to me, that we as civilians have one of our peers who's on trial for a crime. And we are supposed to figure out, did he do this beyond a reasonable doubt? Did he kill these 4 kids? Because if he didn't, guys, that's such a disgrace.
And again, Bertie, if he did not do this, the jury hopefully will do their job and find him innocent, just like Karen Read.
Yep. So I wanted, I brought up the Discord conversation. Phoenix, I don't know if you were in here when I was talking about that, but like on the Discord, there's like the voice chat lounge. So there's like 8 people in there, and me and Mrs. Birdie popped in there last night. We were just hanging out and talking to people. Will had got brought up again. I don't want to keep bringing up Bryan Kohberger's friend, because again, it's not like Will was putting him at the crime of the scene of the crime. Everybody, Will was just saying that he was an acquaintance from his past who felt like how Bryan's being portrayed in the media is not accurately. Now, you can choose to believe Will, you can choose to not believe Will. I believe Will. Phoenix believes Will. There's a lot of people that do believe Will. Now, what's interesting is that if you go back and you turn on the subtitles and you listen to what Will says, there are aspects of what he says where he goes, well, when I got out of it, people would still show up at my house. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? So to me, that doesn't just scream using. That screams dealing. You could argue that he says when I was dealing, it kind of sounds like doing too when we were.
Yeah. And I sent you a message saying, hey, something's not right here, right?
Yeah.
Something.
So then when I asked Will, do you think Bryan was a Fed? He goes, no. I go, what about informant? He took a couple, like a 15-20-second pause, couple deep breaths. He goes, I don't know, unless he got caught doing something. And Doms in the Discord had brought up, well, how does somebody move out there What is he out there? Less than, 2 or 3 months. How does he, with narcotics, you got to earn kind of people's trust if you're going to be really running with that crowd. It's like,
unless you're brought in by someone else that's very trusted.
exactly, Phoenix. That's the only way. That's the
And
only
that's what
way.
I said from the beginning.
Yep.
Number one, my question was, how could he afford his apartment? Being a TA and set up at the university, you have to pay for that apartment. You have to pay for your lifestyle. And
Mhm.
how did he just go from, you know, in college back to college in that position and then on the rug scene the next day at the pool party?
Or he was dealing to make extra cash and not using. Right. So the whole thing
Correct.
of, well, Brian
But
got
that's
clean at a
highly
younger age. It's highly unlikely. Now, what if Phoenix, when Brian was recommended for that internship, let's all be honest. If you're going to do an internship as an ex-addict with the police department, it's going to come up in an interview process.
correct.
Now let me walk everybody through this back to the beginning. So Brian's recommended for this. He goes out there, doesn't get it allegedly. Yet the police chief is asked, does Brian work for you or has he ever worked for you? Police chief says, I have to talk with my attorney before I answer that. Okay.
Correct.
You say that answer for one reason and one reason only. Okay. Either he did work for you, is working for you, or there was discussions about him potentially working for you. So you're very much so aware of him if you're going to have to talk to an
Vet
attorney
him.
to answer a yes or no question. So
Now,
go ahead.
yeah. Now, last night I went all through the disturbance calls for the 1122 King Road, and I caught a conversation between two officers talking to one of the frat guys that was standing there asking about how do they get on the police department.
Oh, yeah.
And the other policeman says they go to your hometown, wherever you're coming from. They talk to previous employers, friends, families. They do what's called in the military a top secret background investigation. They go and they talk to as many people as they can about you, about your life, about your friends, what you do in your spare time. They know even when you went to the restroom. Okay. So I'm just saying they do a thorough check. So if he was in any talks with working with any departments, whether it be federal, local, state, they would do this type of investigation in the background.
Correct. Now, my question is, does corruption come into play where Brian Koberg is a CI? Or maybe it's not even a CI. It's just he applied for the internship and they're like, this guy's pretty bright. He's got a pass. We have a huge narcotics problem out here. We could utilize him for something way more effective than a damn internship. Right? So,
Possible.
yeah. And then let's say Brian, wrong place, wrong time, as this CI, is involved in this or is involved with the people who did this. Because don't forget, they, in the beginning, when all the court docs started coming out, it was to protect the person not named in case.
Correct.
We still don't know who that is. That has to be a protected person. And now everything coming out with the DoorDash driver and their associates, and how you hear people on body cam footage saying that's a protected person.
It's just the state. I mean, their case is falling apart. So why not put some stuff out there that's going to help the defense?
Well, exactly. And so I wonder if when Brian says he knows who's setting him up, is it because he's the new guy on the block? They can maybe try to say, we don't trust him. He could have done it. And it really is him being railroaded by LE. And he's just the sketchy informant that went rogue.
Well, remember, this tip came from the three-letter agency. It didn't come from MPD. They were looking for other people. They were looking for other leads. They were still stumped in the investigation as to who could have done this. And then obviously in the documents, it says the tip came in and they stopped searching. They focused on one individual based on what this three-letter agency said.
So,
And I'm sure they're going to be asked that on the stand.
I don't know how they couldn't be. But I just think that that's going to be so, like, what are we really proving in this case? in this trial right now, Phoenix. It doesn't seem to be about finding who else did this instead of Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at every level. Is it the DNA background, genetic genealogy, tied into possibly breaking their own federal policy in regards to third party ancestry, data DNA? Is it the innocent until proven guilty trial by media? Or is it a frame cover up job? Or is it possibly this was all related to the activity from a multi agency takedown from Take Back America and get this dangerous drug off the street?
Right. And then you look at the dude that looks like he's 12 who's on the states team. You look at his background, he's never investigated a homicide ever. It all has to do with RICO and cartel, gangs, narcotics.
Josh Hurwitz
Yep.
is well known in the state of Idaho to take down the drug running. Idaho was so conservative that other states tried to say, well, we're going to bring in Idaho to be part of our state, right? There was like a big pushback on that a couple years ago, but Josh Hurwitz took down so many cartel area, especially in Jerome, Idaho. In Canyon County was one of the biggest, largest drug running gangs that you would not. I mean, 27 people went down and most of them were from Canyon County. That is a hot spot. And I'm sure, years ago you heard about everybody moving the weed on the street, right? Through trucks, and the truckers that were stopped and caught and then convicted and released because it was hemp. It wasn't actual weed. So if you go and look at their history and do all those click throughs, you'll see it all the way to the top. They got Jesse James Bailey that was in the area with the Aryan Brotherhood. They got everyone connected to the Arizona, that when the operation in December of 22 in that area where the college is was moved out of that area. They knew they were onto them. They knew it was over. They moved their whole operation from the backwoods of North Carolina, of Idaho, all the way down to Arizona.
What's so hard, Phoenix, is like there's been so much speculation on this that sometimes it's hard for even like me and you, I'm sure, to keep this, kind of straight in our heads.
Well, if you take a step back, and that's why I've taken a few days off, if you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, this was for national security. If they had to throw somebody under the bus and, just say, well, we've got to get this off the table, the real perps don't need to know we're on to them. We have to do some covering up. How many other cover ups have there been in the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years?
More than we can even name.
Probably what covered now. It is the art of war.
I mean, you got a federal prosecutor. He's not a homicide guy. You got the marshals on site. This is big, everybody. This is really big. And it's not just, and I don't want to downplay this, because if 4 people lost their lives, that's obviously a big deal. But what I'm trying to say is think about just the magnitude of the powers that be that are involved here from the jump. That doesn't scream simple homicide. And it doesn't scream, oh, they can't figure it out because there's no DNA. Cases go cold all the time where the marshals and the feds don't get involved in it. Oh, looks like Phoenix dropped out. I'll put it back in the chat. If you guys see Phoenix in the chat, tell her that I put the link back in there. So I go back to like, was the King Roadhouse compromised? Was it under surveillance? Were the murders not a part of this plan? And is that why Hurwitz takes the case, is to keep it controlled? Not because he's necessarily like the best man for the job. He took it almost because he had to. A federal operations at risk of being exposed, damage control, and a media narrative becomes the priority. You guys watch any CSI or like any like cop show or lawyer show, you guys know that it's like, we can't let the public find out. They say that all the time. You know, that could explain the sealed filings, the redacted warrants, the quiet control of evidence, the strategic use of federal tech and surveillance tools. Oh, what is Dina doing up here? I think I put the link in and somebody clicked it. That's funny. I think that also, if that's what's going on, everybody, that sheath could have been a plant. The DNA on the knife sheath could be a complete plant. Hurwitz could be sent in to bury this thing if this op went bad. And that's honestly how I truly feel. Anyways, with that being said, I want to just really quick recap. And that's down here, The Art of War. I believe that Ann Taylor locked the state into their story, into their narrative. They showed that this was a single suspect investigation from day one. You got documents showing likelihood ratio from an expert that the state fought to not have be put in there, where Bryan Kohberger is not even in the top half of the list of other people that were potential contributors to the DNA on item 13.1. I think Ann Taylor knew the alt perp was going to be shut down. However, now she gets to cross-examine. She gets to, not that she wasn't always able to cross-examine, she gets to cross-examine in a way of proving and asking questions that they didn't look at anybody else. She locked the state into their story. And I believe that this is not going to be her plea of Brian's innocent. It's going to be a plea of, is this really what we're going to say now in American courts, in a Supreme Court level for a death penalty case? Is, well, it's good enough. Is that what we want? And I think that will be a very effective method in creating doubt in the 12 jurors' minds. So, Hive, I appreciate everybody tuning in here on this Sunday. This is a little bit shorter of a stream. I got a wedding to go to. I will be in the Discord lounge later this evening, most likely, assuming that Mrs. Birdie and I don't let loose a little bit on a Sunday here at this wedding, which I don't think we will be, but who knows? Please email me any Hive Mind finds to birdiebombshell00@gmail.com. If you're a graphic designer for merch, you can also send me designs to that. The Discord link is in my bio. I will show you guys real quick where it's at here. Let it just load up. So if you go to my YouTube and you want to join the Discord, you just click this more button here. Scroll down and you just click this link. So that is the off-stream headquarters for the Hive. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Sunday. And with that, I will see you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. with Devil's Advocates. Cheers, everybody.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.